So, welcome everyone back to another episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 85 or no, 86. Sorry, last week was 85 when unfortunately I had a sick kid and I was not able to attend. This week we have Sir Matt Money with us. The other two OGs could not make it. But we are the OGs, so it's still going to be an amazing Rocket Lab Weekly. So how are you doing, Matt?
I don't know if my thing's off mute or not. Hold on. Sorry. I'm not on mute. Okay, good. Sorry, I was just getting the video details set up so that your link and everything was in there. Great, man. Always appreciative of you inviting me on. As always, I really do enjoy this every single week. It's definitely something I keep in mind for Saturdays. It really helps split up my day into like the morning and night times because it's like literally on the border right before dinner. But things are great, man. I can't complain. The markets have been doing really well for me. I think we're a little overextended. We've seen that, and I think we've seen a recent pullback. I don't think the tariff stuff is out of the woods just yet, so I feel like we're still going to have a couple more months of ups and downs and volatility associated with that. But I still think the economy is rather strong. Still see people traveling about and doing things well. But in terms of Rocket Lab, continue to add to the position as always, and a few other positions in there as well. Bitcoin also. But yeah, the market's been treating me well, back to all-time highs pretty much in the portfolio, except for I guess the last day or so. So maybe within 1% or so of all-time highs. Trying to think there's anything else. That's it for me, man. How are things with you?
Yeah, good. I really miss doing my usual content on YouTube, but ever since I've gotten my fourth baby 6 months ago, I haven't managed to. I have really a lot going on here, so I'm hoping that soon I can be back on a normal schedule. And but it's always a pleasure to follow Rocket Lab, and I really appreciate your insights into the market, and I appreciate this audience. And life is
Well, not to be too much of a kumbaya and too happy, but we're really glad that you're able to even give us the gracious amount of time that you do. People don't understand. I mean, putting the topics together and really keeping the show together on a regular cadence for 85 weeks. That's impressive, man. It's an impressive feat, and I think that we've really started to grow something here that really demonstrates the love that we see from you, myself, and many others that are obviously in the community. How great this company really is, and I think that unfortunately doesn't get shown by the mainstream media as much as we would like. And so I'm very appreciative of what you do, and it doesn't go unrecognized by me. That's for sure.
Thank you so much. Guys, this week I want to test a new feature on StreamYard, and that is, I don't know if you see that there is the comments can be layered on the main screen, so everybody can see all the comments. Now, I guess if you're watching this from an iPhone, those comments are teeny tiny little bit. I basically can't read them from the screen if I look at the overlays. So please let me know if it's a good feature or a bad feature, or what you guys think about it, if we should keep it. And yeah, let's start talking about Rocket Lab and the news of this week. So let's start with the first one, and that is that we had the latest mission announcement. That is for the 28th of May from LC1 for Black Sky. It feels like for 2 quarters now in a row, Rocket Lab has a very slow start of the quarter, and then they just really speed up with the launches. I don't know. Is there any comments that you want to give on how Electron is doing?
I'm kind of curious. When I saw this announcement, I was expecting, when I saw Black Sky, two launches for this quarter. I don't know why my mind was kind of going that way, but just excited to see a launch in general. It'll be the second launch for the quarter, and I'm kind of curious to see, since this is the second launch this month, the last one being on a week ago, the 17th. I'm curious to see where this ends in terms of how many more launches they have proposed for the second quarter, how many in June specifically, because as we know, we need to maintain about a cadence of 4 to 5 to kind of maintain within striking distance of that 20, right? To give everyone a reminder, Rocket Lab launched 16 launches for the Electron in 2024, and their hope is they didn't give it an exact number for 2025 due to the fact that they obviously were forecasting for way more launches last year and unfortunately didn't meet that target because of readiness, etc. But the hope is that they get about 20. That's kind of what they're guiding for unofficially. So curious to see what ends up happening if they're able to maintain that or not.
Yeah. Awesome. So we go over to the next one, and it's been kind of a slow news for Rocket Lab, but there is sort of space macro news, if you can say that. So the budget passed the Congress this week, and I don't fully know how the US law system works. All I know is that it has to be passed both by Congress and the Senate. And do you, by the way, know if so they pass something in the House and then they pass the same thing in the Senate, or can they like change on it and then they pass that and it has to go back to the House, or they can just change it and then it goes to the president? Or
generally it goes the House, Senate, and then up to the president, but things can be misordered sometimes.
But can it change?
But
can it change? Can it change? So let's say that the House approves 25 million for the Golden Dome, and then the Senate says, no, that's way too much, 15 billion. And then it goes to the president, or then it has to go back to the House?
That I'm not 100% certain. I think that then it would have to, if they veto it at the Senate level, I think it would have to come back to the House and be fixed again. And that's sometimes I think why some things just get stuck in stalemate for a long time, and or layered into other bills, because sometimes it's just easier to, while other bills are going up, to layer small things. So the Golden Dome, for example, you might see that it's got $25 billion in reconciliation. It might have $1 million for this, $1 million for that. It might not pass through the Senate. And so what they might do is they might take those small $1 million, $2 million things and layer it into a different bill that they know might pass. So that's the pluses and minuses of checks and balances within the U.S. government.
Awesome. So Golden Dome, space macro news. One thing I must say, I was not here last week when you guys were all talking about the Peter Beck interview that we did, but so I couldn't comment on my part, but you guys did a really, really good Rocket Lab Weekly last week. So what stood out for me from the interview is that all of us are really focusing on, like, is Rocket Lab winning this contract or that contract? And then we're all very disappointed that, oh, Rocket Lab didn't get this contract. And in actual real fact, what happens is that when Rocket Lab doesn't win a contract, then many times the guys who win it come back to Rocket Lab and like, okay, you guys didn't win the whole thing, but can we buy this piece and this piece and this piece from you, you know? So regardless, my key takeaway from that is that regardless who gets the Golden Dome, you know, if it's straight out Rocket Lab is a prime on certain contracts or not, it's going to be really, really good for Rocket Lab. Like as Sir Peter Beck said, when space wins, we win. And so that's point number one. Point number two, if you look at it, it's 25 billion this year. A total cost of this is 175 billion. And Trump wants it done in 3 years before he leaves office. And that's a really, really, really aggressive timeline. So I guess the people who are, you know, like Boeing, ULA, who are many, many years delayed on projects, they will not be favored for the tenders, I guess, of this one. And Rocket Lab, who is very well known for keeping their timelines, having secure supply chains, and their house in order, is probably a really good contender for this. So I think that this is super bullish for Rocket Lab, but not directly. Like a lot of people can miss it. But what do you think, Sir Matt?
I mean, you have to recognize that things don't change on a dime, right? I mean, let's just say we're in peacetime for most sakes, right? I mean, unfortunately, there's ongoing battles going everywhere in the world right now. But let's just say for the United States, we're generally speaking in peacetime. It would be hard to say that Rocket Lab could take on a project this large, like you stated, within a 3-year time period. So I think it would have to be divvied up in some sort of way, shape, or form to be able to help. And Rocket Lab may, like you stated, have the ability to create components for certain things. And in fact, remind me, I want to highlight that that particular notion in the later piece. I hope we bring it up, so we'll see. But yeah, I mean, a contract this big is specifically in the 3-year timeline. You can't just shelve everybody else. You can't shelve Black Sky. You can't shelve LQPS. Like, and so you only have the capacity which you have to launch or create opportunities. So it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying we're launching anything with Golden Dome, but I'm assuming you're going to have to test some sort of things, whether it's defensive metrics and things that you have to test. But yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be scattered across multiple companies to be able to be done.
Yeah. All right. And so this week, our money expert, Sir Matt Money, got into a fight on Twitter with Tinfoil Tim, who used to be considered a Rocket Lab bull. Now he's somehow considered a Rocket Lab trader. I still love the guy as good as ever, and he still owns Rocket Lab. Yeah, and he still owns Rocket Lab. And you and him had a little bit friendly back and forth, I would say. The thing is that it's very, very technical. I have to be honest. Like, when it comes to this spectrums and radio bands, I feel like I'm really not an expert on that. And so, Matt, why don't you brief us what this fight was about and what was the outcome?
Well, I'll just be honest. I'm the least intelligent person to be discussing space and space components and satellite components on X. Let's just be certain about that. I mean, but at the end of the day, I think one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is it was a misperception on my part. But basically, I'm very bullish about Rocket Lab in the long term and their ability to use lasers to be able to create way more of a constellation than I think people are giving credit for. And then you have Tinfoil Tim, which I got in trouble for saying, oh, Matt's calling him Tinfoil Tim. It's like, I've been calling him Tinfoil Tim for months now, not particularly because of this little debate that we were having here. But basically what Tim had said on the bottom one of my posts or something like that, which I read too quickly in retrospect, but he basically stated that Rocket Lab has a hole when it comes to providing radio frequencies or the capability to provide internet, etc. And I kind of was scratching my head, and this was part of my misunderstanding here, is Rocket Lab, similar to SpaceX and Amazon's Kuiper, has the ability to use radio frequencies like a Ka band. And, you know, and my kind of immediate response is, it's like, well, if they wanted to, they could retrofit that, you know, in time to be able to be used for potential internet. And to be fair as well, I mean, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you have to go the ASTS route, you have to work with AT&T, you have to work with T-Mobile and Verizon to be able to get access to the consumer. It's like Starlink doesn't necessarily have those communications. They're now starting to get involved with T-Mobile, etc., with respect to being able to go directly to get spectrum, basically turning in those radio frequencies to be able to utilize the internet, right? Basically is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that a key thing that I think a lot of people missed during the interview that we had with Sir Peter Beck is, well, if you utilize lasers, you don't need to get involved with spectrum at all. And I think a lot of people don't fully recognize that, is everyone's over here fighting for radio frequencies, but yet Rocket Lab is, say, cornering the market in laser technology that will allow you to bypass spectrum in its entirety. And so we're having this debate, which I think is kind of funny in retrospect. It's like, we're kind of debating about, yes, the current technology in which, you know, who is better to provide or whatever. And yes, Tim is right here. Rocket Lab does have a hole in their current business plan to not provide radio frequencies for internet communications. But where I was coming from is these lasers are going to be the future, in my opinion. And it looks like that there's pros and cons of that. And Rocket Lab is, if they get, which is still to be finalized, the Mynaric position, then they're probably going to corner the market. And I think that they recognized that when they were developing the space development satellites, the SDA satellites, and many other things as well. So anyway, I respect Tim. I call him Tinfoil Tim, by the way, because he was a super big Rocket Lab bull, and then he bought into ASTS, and I don't want to say get brainwashed by the space mob, but it seems more space mobbish, and I think he does that intently, because he knows that if he favors Rocket Lab too much, he'll probably get kicked out of the space mob. But anyway, this is a really good explanation by Tim. You know, I don't want to decredit him by any means. He's way smarter about these things than I am. But I also don't think that you should say that Rocket Lab has a hole in their business plan. I do think that he's right. Rocket Lab's not necessarily going after those particular things. But at the end of the day, I think that Rocket Lab is very strategic and is thinking 10 years ahead, while ASTS is just trying to get to profit any sort of revenue at the moment.
Yeah. So question. So the lasers, they are like point-to-point communication, right? Like, so you have two satellites, and then one of them sends a beam to the other one, and then it's like, it's the pros of this, I guess, is that from Earth you cannot intercept this, you cannot hack the communication. Like, it's very safe, and in space you don't have weather, clouds, or anything really blocking the laser, right? So it's very fast and simple. But does it work like from satellite down to Earth, like in any weather, anything?
I can't say any weather, but yeah, I mean, the intent is that you could also communicate from Earth to satellite as well. That's also
because for like the military, like would they feel safe to use lasers only? Because the reason why I'm asking this is like, it feels like the radio frequency, like it will be needed if somebody doesn't come up with the technology to shoot through lasers through the cloud, right?
Well, I'd say it's in its infancy, right? I mean, yes, we've utilized laser technology back and forth between satellites in the past, and I'm speaking, you know, as a very uneducated person, this topic, but we've been utilizing radio frequencies for such a long time, and so that's part of the congestion that people are talking about, the spectrum, right? You need to get FCC compliance and get with it. It's like, well, at the moment, it's so much in its infancy that lasers don't even have that sort of issue, because people aren't crowding the radio waves. Like, Starlink had to go directly to the FCC to say, hey, we want experimental bandwidth or spectrum to be able to test this technology. And so they got 1.9 gigahertz to 2.0 gigahertz to test, while everybody else is utilizing different gigahertz. You know, this stuff's all over my head, but I mean, I'm just trying to explain it to the best of my knowledge. So in that respect, I mean, you can bypass everybody who's fighting for what ASTS is fighting for, which is the spectrum. And not only that, but if you think about it in that perspective, if you have to fight for the spectrum or the license, and you have to work with AT&T, Verizon, yes, you're going to have to share profits and revenues associated with those guys. If you bypass it, you no longer have to have AT&T, Verizon in the system, and you might be years away. But think about how much more profitable a potential opportunity could be if you don't have to get AT&T, Verizon, etc. involved. And granted, I know I'm still talking about internet and things of the like. Eventually, I anticipate internet will go that route. You know, in a rudimentary sense, that's what I'm anticipating. But I don't think that that's necessarily what Rocket Lab is trying to do with a satellite at the moment.
Okay. So what you're saying is there is a version of the multiverse where if Rocket Lab would discover a way to make the lasers very, very reliable, then they could obsolete all of ASTS business.
Obsolete, no, but their margins would be better, right?
Yeah. And so another question. So obviously, like, you have an ASTS satellite, and it beams internet to probably hundreds of thousands of devices, right? Now, a laser, as far as I understand, it goes from one to one. So how would you be able to have like space-based internet with that? Because the guys in the comment section made this very good point that for the military, you get the space-based data, and it's like a mesh network, and then if it's cloudy around this ground station, then it can beam down the data to another ground station, which then sends the data back to the military. And most probably, how the weather is on the planet, there will always be a ground station that is available for the laser to communicate. So for that use case, I can see it can work, right? But yeah, like the optical, like for example, now I'm sitting inside my house, right? Like there's no way my phone would optically see the satellite.
Yeah, I don't know the direct intricacies of all of it, but what I will say is I think it will be something that is going to be continue to be developed, and I don't think people are giving it enough credit, in my opinion.
Okay,
I could be very wrong, and like I said, my passion and rudimentary understanding can get me in waters that I don't know fully, as people are talking about in the chat. But I think that people are also underestimating the ability for, if you have a network of thousands of satellites that have the ability to communicate with each other across the globe, that are all linked up and communicating and coupled up, then they should be okay, right? If you have enough satellites. But just like Starlink, right? The whole world doesn't necessarily have communication and ability to chat with Starlink. It needs currently more satellites to be able to get global coverage. So it is what it is.
All right. Interesting discussion. So we go over to the next one. There was an interview by Ashley Vance, who, fun fact, I have interviewed once or twice before myself already. And he interviewed our lovely Peter Beck. And this was not a financial, but more of a philosophy and more general, like non-space nerds podcast. I just finished watching it before the weekly, and it was really interesting. Matt, have you had the chance to check this one out?
Not the whole thing. About 3/4 of it. I thought it was a great conversation. Love that they are continuing their partnership and being able to chat, and I love that. But like they stated, it's been a little bit since they've had a conversation, so it was nice to see them kind of finish that after specifically they had Wild Wild Space and the actual documentary come out on HBO. So very cool. To kind of see that kind of come around again. And I like the conversational piece, and it's something that I kind of admire. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got from Reddit with respect to our interview is like, it's almost like an interrogation, but Ashley does a very good job of making it very conversational and lightens the mood a little bit as well. Just a moment, be right back. I'm listening, so feel free, but I just have to do something really quick.
No problem. I mean, for these Reddit keyboard warriors, I don't think they understand what goes into such an interview. And it's like, the thing is, like, if you would have Sir Peter Beck one-on-one, it would be a lot easier to have a more conversational interview. But we have to submit our questions before the interview, and then because there's a huge time delay between New Zealand and the EU and the US. Like, we normally send the questions, and normally they approve all the questions. But then we cannot go into what order we are asking the questions. And so we always just takes it as it comes. And it's not always that conversational. But I still hope that the interview is very helpful for, I always try to make it so that, non-rocket people, because I don't think many of us are rocket engineers here, so that there is, he explains what they're doing so that, us normal people can understand it. And I think we are asking questions that, the Wall Street analysts are not asking, and that are, very relevant for. So I think it's a good interview if you're a retail investor, but I can see how it's maybe not as useful if, you want like an HBO documentary, Wild Wild Space kind of stuff, then it's not the best interview to watch. For me, there was a very interesting takeaway from this interview. Ashley Vance asked him, because in his book, he wrote that Sir Peter Beck wanted to arrange a meeting with Elon Musk, and then Ashley Vance set up this meeting, and then they had dinner together. And very shortly after that, SpaceX went into the ride sharing business. And he asked Sir Peter Beck, like, do you regret that you had dinner with Elon Musk and that you went on his radar? And it was really interesting that he basically said that they were always thinking with rideshare. That was always in Rocket Lab's business model, that there is like for many companies, it makes more sense to do rideshare, and only the companies that have to fly on Electron will fly on Electron. And if anything, he thought that it accelerated Electron's business, because there's a lot of companies who get VC funding, they have a proof of concept, and then they fly on a transporter mission. And then if the concept works, then they come back to Rocket Lab that they need to deploy a constellation. So that for me was something that was like, oh, wow, this is a piece of Rocket Lab history that I completely had wrong. So Matt, are you back or?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I was listening.
Awesome.
I didn't get to that. I didn't get to that part, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's towards, I think it's one of the last questions. And by the way, he shouts out, he says that he has a barbecue with the retail investors booked in when it's the Neutron launch. So I believe that's a shout out to Christopher Bell here. So that's pretty good.
There you go.
Yet again, Sir Peter Beck hears about the retail party. I kind of felt like an idiot for asking that on the interview, but I really get asked so much about, like, can you connect us with Rocket Lab, and how can we arrange a party? And then I kind of felt like in the interview, Sir Peter Beck thought that I wanted to party with him, and he's like, no, I'm boring to party with. And I'm like,
well, I do. Yeah, I mean, that's of course we want to party with Peter, but I think there is sorry to jump in there, but we've been having conversations about this in the background. It's just like, party, launch, like it's interesting. It's like you really need to figure out a way to decouple a party. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there's an opportunity for an investor day and the ability for anybody that potentially invests in the company to be able to show up and have that media license for the day to be able to access, stroke a rocket, as Peter would say. And but at the end of the day, it's like having like a Rocket Lab hosted party around Neutron. And if there's any liabilities associated with that, then falls back on the Rocket Lab group. That's just not something I personally would want, right? I don't want anything to deter the success of Neutron or them having to deal with some sort of liability or cleanup due to us just like being unuseful idiots. More so speaking for myself. Everyone else is a genius in this group, but it's a fine line. And so I kind of hear what they're kind of saying is like, if we're all in the vicinity and we happen to all be going to this investor day, and we somehow all happen to meet up somehow, that it is a non-Rocket Lab sponsored opportunity.
Yeah. I think the party was like a misnomer, and it's also super hard to arrange, because the first launch, spoiler alert, guys, there is going to be a lot of scrubs and a lot of like, we thought it would launch on this date, and we have a bad reading on this sensor, so now it's one day more delayed. So I completely, even in asking the question, I myself came to that probably the best shot that they have is like when Neutron is up on the pad, that they have an investor day. But yeah, the actual launch party, I think, is extremely, extremely difficult to organize together time-wise. So Matt has disappeared, but yeah, I will keep the show. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in this interview, but yeah, I think it's a really good interview. If you guys want to watch it, then definitely check it out. And we go over to the next one. And that is, I don't know if you guys heard, this is a non-Rocket Lab news, but basically Flight 9 of Starship program has been approved. So Starship is flying again very soon. And they are reflying the booster for the first time. They just had 2 failures on a new design. it's definitely going to be a very, very interesting launch. As far as I know, they're not going to try to land the reuse booster. Is going to just land in the ocean. They're not going to try to bring it back to the launch tower. So we're going to see how it goes, that one. And we go to also the next news. And by the way, now that Matt isn't, oh, he just came back. I was going to say, like, if there's no other people on the line, then it's just like, okay, this is the news. It goes like so fast that the show would be over before you're back. So did you hear Starship 9 is approved?
I did. And I didn't know that they weren't going to try to re-land it. So that's pretty interesting news. I was hoping.
I think it's not worth the risk because it's a reuse booster, and they have caught two or three now with the tower, and then I think they just want to see how they can afford to land $60 million or how many $1 million.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, right? I mean, they're going to do more tests, so take it in baby steps, I guess. It makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so now we go to the next one. As I said, Rocket Lab. For Rocket Lab, it was a slow news week, but there is other news. So Pentagon seems to be fed up with ULA's rocket delays. This was an article by Eric Berger, and basically goes into the article that in the Space Force, the guy who's head of the acquisition, he has given testimonials now that he feels that ULA has to repair the trust. And I think that is, again, just very bullish for Rocket Lab. We come back to this, Golden Dome, and, like this one is also, it's not that Rocket Lab won a contract, but it does mean that the government seems to be valuing the budget and the time very, very much, and Rocket Lab just happens to be really good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an ongoing, I think, government push to forego the way that things were previously done in the past 20 to 30 years. I think that this is the way that businesses have been set up. They've acquired so many companies, right? I mean, the Lockheeds of the world, the Northrop Grummans of the world used to be, comparable to what you would see as a Rocket Lab and SpaceX. They were startups, and those startups became so profitable they acquired so many other companies that now they become these big conglomerates that they can charge outrageous margins. And not only that, but they became so allured with the money side of things rather than the speed and pace of things that they stopped innovating, and they just kept acquiring and acquiring and acquiring. So I think that's what this reset has been with SpaceX and Rocket Lab. And I think the reusability that SpaceX has brought in since the 2017 timeframe has been a huge proponent of that. And really driving down costs and really trying to get to that next level of innovation to make it, because as budgets get tighter, you're going to be able to potentially launch more vehicles when previously you'd have to expend them all, as eloquently kind of stated in the chat. So.
Yeah. Awesome. That was all the Rocket Lab news that I had for this week. Matt, you went away. I don't know if you can hear us. I was going to ask you if you were here. What's your view on the budget that has just passed? Because I saw a lot of comments on Twitter that people were not happy that Doge was apparently not cutting as much as they said that they were going to cut. And I saw some Elon Musk interviews where he said that, like, look, we're an advisory agency and we have made our recommendations. And then if the people just don't want to do what we say, then it's on them. It's not on us or not on me. So,
I mean, the government's still. I haven't seen the budget, but about the part where you're talking about, with respect to things being cut, Elon has noted that in the past that there's several $100 billion worth of items that they've noted, right? And like you stated, that has to go through the right channels of bureaucracy to be able to say whether or not that needs to be cut. And so I'm sure there's a long list of things that have been cut for 2026. There's also a deadline in there, right? And I don't know if you've seen the Kash Patel interview of the FBI, the head of the FBI basically being questioned by Congress, like, where's your budget, right? So there's a budget piece of, hey, we needed to get this in, by the month of May. So you can't necessarily include everything at the moment that needs to still go through bureaucracy to be cut in those budgets, right? So some of those things might flow through in 2027 budget. Some of those things might flow through in the 2028 budget, or some of them not at all. Like you stated, at the end of the day, they can only, as an agency, advise whether or not that gets caught. I mean, point blank, I shouldn't say this. I have billions of dollars worth of projects that I'd like to push through in my day-to-day job, but that still has to go through a line of command that says, you know what, we have to stick to a strict capital frame, and we can only spend X amount per annum. And but there's plenty of projects I would love to work on.
But right is it now the same on cutting? Like if you would say, like, here is how I'm going to save you $1 billion, like will you face the same?
I mean, the United States government's the largest business in the world with respect to how much things that it occupies and how much money comes through. It's not something that can be changed overnight. And literally, you gave an opportunity to make these changes in a matter of 4 months, and they have a budget timeline. And so, unfortunately, in that respect, it's like, how much can you actually get through in 4 months and be able to reasonably push through? I don't know if there was a specific part about the budget specifically for NASA and other things that you wanted to highlight specifically, but that's just my thought about the whole process. I don't necessarily have a particular comment. I haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen the budget, how much it's been cut by, etc. But I mean, that's just my thought about how things work. I mean, you can't expect everything to be included within the amount of 4 months.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like that. I wasn't asking about specific things. It's more like when the budget went through, like I saw a lot of like pro-Trump people tweeting like, this is such an F up by can't believe that the Republicans are doing this. And I'm like, okay, is it really that bad? Or yeah, so I thought I ask the MAGA channel here to
good old MAGA Matt. He'll be the best guy to filibuster you.
Okay, exactly. Then the next question, because by the way, feel free to ask anything in the comments, guys. Like the Rocket Lab part is done for this video, I think. So Trump on Friday tweeted about extra tariffs on the EU, and I was like, I thought we were done with tariffs, and it was supposed to be just an uphill, or how do you call it, like downhill from here. So what do you think it's going to, how does it affect Rocket Lab, the market?
It'll continue to bring volatility, but as always, I think 50% is just a starting point. So there might be certain aspects of the particular products that might be 50% taxed in the future, but I would find it very unlikely that the whole of all the products that we exchange back and forth between the EU and the United States would be taxed at 50%. Specifically, U.S. LNG, right? I doubt for a fact that's our second largest export in the United States, and majority of that goes to the European Union at the moment. I doubt that we would want a 50% tariff on that, because then that would only empower Russia, that would only empower Qatar, that would only empower Australia. And a lot of those are our allies, except for maybe Russia. We kind of see them as a neutral person, right? We're kind of in a Cold War with them to some extent at the moment. So to me, I doubt that 50% tariffs will remain on something like US LNG. When it comes to actually like the hypersonics and stuff like that have recently been kind of discussed in the UK. The UK already has their deal, right? With the US. And so that kind of, if you were to think about, well, how is Rocket Lab playing into the EU. At the moment, that UK deal is out of the UK is out of the EU. So in that respect, they have their own trade deal. So keep that in mind. In terms of everything else with respect to Minarch and things like that, I don't know. I really don't know. And that's kind of be TBD. But like I stated, I think that 50% would probably be the highest, and it's likely to come down from there.
Yeah. But do you think we are going to see new lows, or the market is kind of I cannot say the word, desensitized, and it's just thinking like, okay, it's just negotiation, and I mean, I see that we will probably not make new highs without the tariffs being fully negotiated, but do you think that on Monday it's going to be a bloodbath? And yeah,
there's going to be blood, but is it a bloodbath? I don't think so. In my opinion, I think, yeah, Hawk Curtis, thank you for the hat, my guy. It's a 1 of 5 for sure. Yeah, big shout out for that one. I love this hat. The thing that I'm kind of thinking of is particularly around how much other uncertainty has been removed from the system. We know that China and the US are talking. That's probably the biggest piece. We know that the US and India are talking. That's another huge piece, right? And we know that we're trying to rely less on China and move some of that dependence upon, work and collaboration to India. And because I think there's a lot of opportunity associated with that. So we know we have a contract with the UK. I'm sure there's other countries in there where we've had decent communications and chats as well. So to me, I think a lot of the noise is not a lot of the noise, but some of the noise and uncertainty has been removed from the system. Granted, not everything has been finalized, but at least we know things are coming closer to a head. So in terms of things going back to all-time lows again, I think there would need to be something else other than tariffs that would drive something like that. But once again, that's probably me putting my MAGA Matt hat on. But I just think that you've had a decent amount of things move in the right direction from the tariff discussions, that at least that max uncertainty, max fear piece is starting to hopefully come down a good bit. But I could be wrong.
All right. Just to follow up on some of the comments, there was Lockability who's asking, should I get, and I think he's on your channel, should I get my dad to buy Rocket Lab, or will he disown me? I will let Matt answer that. I guess the disowning you will depend on if the stock price goes up or down. But Matt, should Lockability's dad buy Rocket Lab?
Well, I think it really depends. I mean, I don't know how old this gentleman is. Is this like a 10-year-old calling in? His dad's 35? Like, I don't know.
75 or
yeah, is he 75? I think it really all just depends. Like, does your dad need the money or not, and what kind of situation he's in? Like if your dad could stand to lose potentially money, then I think it's an awesome opportunity to consider, and it'll be fun for him. I think give him some fun to look at some rockets launch, so that keep himself busy. I think it's a nice space, and depending on how old he is, he might remember seeing the first space race back around the 50s and 60s when things were really starting to pop off, and it might give him some fond memories. But it also depends on very much, like, does your dad need that money to live? Is he getting dividends from those money that he needs to live off of? In that case, I would say just be very cautious. You don't know the situation. It's easy for me, a 34-year-old single, no kids that I know of, and trust me, I probably would know, to be able to put a risk in his portfolio to potentially chase an 8-figure dream. It's different if you have roles, responsibilities, and a wife to take care of, in a house that you need to make sure that you maintain a retirement. So it's hard there's a lot of different things and nuances in there. So apologies that I can't answer directly, but hopefully that helps guide anybody that's listening, that's thinking the same question. It all is very dependent upon where you are in your cycle, what you need the money for, and how much risk you can take on.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter earned some pocket money. She's actually really good at sales. In Sweden, there is like a thing in school that kids can do. They sell flowers, like digital flowers in May. It's called like the May flower. And the kids get to keep 10% of what they sell, and all the money that they collect goes to some charity organization. And it's like a very big thing here in Sweden. And my daughter is really good at selling those stupid flowers. So she earned some money, and she got it paid out to her account a few days ago. And then she's like, Dad, what should I buy? And then I was like, I think you need to buy Rocket Lab, but let's wait a few days, like maybe I don't know if that was stupid, but especially because her time horizon is so freaking long. Like, she's very, very young still. But I think we're a little bit in the market overextended, and maybe Trump will give us some more gifts.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, if you want to give like a vote of confidence on whether or not I think Rocket Lab will succeed as a more than a $10 billion company, I would put the chances of that at 95% plus. But I don't want to gamble somebody else's life on that 5%. I'm willing to take on that loss. I'll survive. Will I cry under a bridge for a couple weeks? Probably, if it went to zero. But at the end of the day, that's mine to lose. I would really hate for somebody to say, this guy online who probably speaks more than he should in a more passionate way, and thinks he knows more than he does about the company, which is probably true. Said I should buy this, and it ends up unfortunately having some sort of black swan event where unfortunately something bad happens with the FAA. There's a disagreement, and unfortunately they lose their license to launch, or anything else like that, right? Immediately the market cap could go X, Y, or Z, and your dad out of fear could sell and be locking in, 40, 50% losses. So it's really up to whomever, but I personally think it's going to be a great opportunity. I love it. But I would also come into it with a lens of the price can go down 50%, as much as we don't think it could go back to being a $13 stock. Something can happen, macroeconomically or within the organization, that you can immediately see a 50% drop. And so just be cautious, recognize that those things are there. I don't think a lot of people would think it would drop from the $30, $31 that we saw earlier this year down to $16, but I was fortunate enough to pick some up at 16. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that is definitely something I've learned in these last couple of years, is you just don't know what the stock market is going to do. Like, normally the things that F you up is like, if you honestly look at the last few years and you draw up your investment thesis and what will move the price. I didn't have COVID on. I didn't have the inflation going skyrocketing. I didn't have how much the tariff is going to agitate the market. Like, I thought that it would agitate the market, but I didn't have it in the cards that Tesla would go from 480 down to like almost 200. By the way, shout out to Tim Walz. He basically perfectly called the button on Tesla. I think there's going to be a lot of memes from that guy. So yeah, don't think
Tim Walz is another tinfoil Tim.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Rocket Lab went to zero. It would be no worse off where I was 5
Oddly
years
enough,
ago.
Rocket Lab has been going to zero in many people's portfolios this weekend. Vince, I'm not sure if you've seen or checked IKBR, but and Fidelity, luckily my shares are intact, but I've heard people on Schwab and many other platforms have informed me that their shares have actually gone to zero.
Because of the
caveat that they've gone from Rocket Lab USA in preparation to go to Rocket Lab Corp. So I told you guys, Rocket Lab will eventually go to zero.
Yeah, Matt was right all along. I actually have to check now because I did get the notification in Interactive Brokers.
It's like, you're down 50%, Vince.
Yeah.
Some guy messaged me. He's like, I was down 6%. I was like, it's only 6%. I was like, you got to get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. Why not 100%?
There is definitely something fishy on my account. It says I have over $1 million. That's funny. Let's sell it now. can I sell in?
You have over 1 million. Is that a humble brag, or is that you're supposed to have like 1.5? I don't know.
No. It's way more than I should have.
Oh.
Unfortunately,
I thought you had multi-millions at this point, Vince.
Yeah, if I hadn't done the cover calls, I would have actually. So that was a very.
It's very true. You had what, 65,000 shares at one point?
Yeah, I still have them. They're just the upside is fantastically limited for me. So yeah, I will make a video about that one for the people who are interested in the. Yeah. Cool. It's so interesting. I would have done, if I do nothing with my portfolio, I would have done better than I try to enhance my gains and be smart. And I mean, how do you call it? I'm still way up, like hundreds of percents compared to when I started. But like if I don't try to do anything, I would have had life-changing gains, you know. And I'm sure that I will have it in the future. And I think this was a good lesson to learn. But yeah, it is what it is.
I see Mopbox said something very similar. I didn't see him say that, but I just looked at my specific page because I was looking at the StreamYard page, and he said basically the same thing. Like, if it drops 40-50%, who's to say that person's not going to sell out of the stock because of fear? I know plenty of people that in 2020 sold out of Google because it went down 30-40%. And I'm like, told them, I was like, dude, I think we were in a this is a humble brag here. I think we're in the Dominican Republic, having a guys' weekend, just hanging out, you know, drinking by the pool, smoking cigars, etc. And you know, he was telling me this, and whatchamacallit, I was like, dude, you need to buy that Google back right now. And I think Google was like, I don't remember. Let me see. It was like probably $120 a share, maybe less. And he's like, no, it's like, you know, there's definitely other things better out there. And anyway, I think it'd be up probably 30-40% since then. And yes, so maybe there are other things, but I know for a fact he didn't buy them. So
yeah, it's funny, all those people who are like, this is what I noticed, you know, like there's not a strategy that works in every market environment, and there's so many people who think that they get lucky ones, like, you know, the ones who's like, I'll buy when it goes lower, I'll buy when it goes lower. Like, they usually never end up buying. And then you have the guys who's like, I'm always buying no matter what. Like, I feel that they get burnt a lot more on the short term, but it's way better on the longer term. So I decided to go over to that camp a lot more. Yeah,
that's what it was. It was like he sold like during the pandemic or something like that, and I think we were in Dominican Republic in like March 2021. So the price of Google or Alphabet at the point was like $100. It peaked all the way at 148 in 2021. So later that year, it did drop back down to 90, which is when I accumulated way more shares, and that was late 2022, early 2023, and then we're obviously back down back to 168. So I'm happy. Majority of my shares are up. You know, I think I bought the majority of them below $100. So I'm up happily on my Google shares.
Nice. Cool. I think this is a good point to end. It was a pleasure to do this Rocket Lab Weekly, as always, Mr. Matt. And thank you so much for the audience for being here. And yeah, see you guys next week.
Thank you all. Good seeing you. Vincent.